Even though the idea of asexuality as a sexual orientation has been around for over 60 years, it's still an unheard of concept to a majority of the world's population. For the past 60 years, though, there's been a growing amount of interest in and research done on asexuality, all resulting in much of what we know about the asexual community and sexuality itself today. The earliest mention of asexuality as a possible sexual orientation is in Alfred Kinsey's reports from 1948 and 1953. These reports resulted in the Kinsey scale, where subjects were scaled from 0 to 6, in which a placement of 0 meant one was exclusively heterosexual, a placement of 6 meant one was exclusively homosexual, and placements of 1 to 5 meant one was bisexual, with varying degrees of homo and heterosexual-oriented attraction. A category labeled X was created for the 1.5% of subjects who didn't respond erotically to sexual stimuli. Though it doesn't fit the current definition of asexuality, and despite Kinsey's partial use of sexual behavior to determine sexual orientation, the category X has come to be associated with asexuality in modern times. By acknowledging the existence of those who are asexual, Kinsey's reports form the basis for further research on the topic. The first time someone tried to explore asexuality after it was initially mentioned in the Kinsey reports was in a 1977 paper titled Asexual and Autoerotic Women, Two Invisible Groups. By analyzing letters sent to the editor in 1970s women's magazines, Myra T. Johnson was able to explore the existence and experiences of women who lacked any desire to engage in sexual intercourse with other people. In it, she described asexuals as individuals who, regardless of physical or emotional condition, actual sexual history, and marital status or ideological orientation seem to prefer not to engage in sexual activity. She distinguished between asexual women, who she defined as those who have no desire to engage in sexual activity with anyone at all, and autoerotic women, who she defined as those who have no desire to engage in sexual activity with other people, yet still desire to masturbate. She portrayed both groups as being invisible, ignored by the sexual liberation and feminist movements, and mistakenly portrayed with negative stereotypes, as well as having their existence denied by society at large. In 1979, Michael D. Storms proposed a new model to address sexual orientation that would correct the inadequacies of the Kinsey scale. Unlike Kinsey, Storms only used fantasizing and eroticism to determine sexual orientation, instead of relying on behavior. Instead of placing heterosexuality and homosexuality on opposite ends of a single scale, Storms placed them on two separate axes to encompass the intensity of attraction towards a certain sex, resulting in a two-dimensional model. As you can see, asexuality fits in the new model, as opposed to in Kinsey's scale, and is described as being low homo and heteroeroticism, as opposed to bisexuality, which is described as being high hetero and homoeroticism. The first study that gave empirical data about asexuals was conducted by Paula Narias in 1983. In this study, she sought to examine the relationship between sexual orientation and mental health. She sampled 680 subjects, most of whom were university students in the United States, and gave them each 4 surveys asking them about their clinical health. She also gave each of them a survey asking about how often they engage in various sexual activities, and how often they would like to engage in those activities. The respondents were then given a score from 0 to 100 for heteroeroticism, and 0 to 100 for homoeroticism. Those who scored lower than 10 for both were labeled asexual. The results of the study showed that 5% of males and 10% of females scored low enough to be considered asexual. That asexuals were somewhat more likely to have low self-esteem and more likely to be depressed than other sexual orientations, and that asexuals had a much lower frequency and lower desired frequency for engaging in various sexual activities. 9 years later, in 1994, another survey appeared which gave empirical data about asexuals. Carried out by a research team in the United Kingdom in order to find out more information on people's sexual habits in light of the recent AIDS epidemic, this survey is where the frequently quoted 1% statistic for the existence of asexuals comes from. A total of 18,876 British residents completed the survey, in which 1% of respondents replied that they had never felt sexually attracted to anyone at all. That survey became the focus of Anthony Bogart's first research papers on asexuality. Beginning in 2004, Brock University Associate Professor Anthony Bogart published a series of papers and later a book outlining the issues faced in defining and understanding asexuality. His first paper analyzed the 1994 United Kingdom study, and in it, he concluded that more research had to be done on asexuality before any data could be confirmed. In 2006, Bogart published another paper on asexuality, this time specifically focusing on the issues that surrounded asexuality. In it, he defined what asexuality is, went over some common misconceptions, and contrasted asexuality with other sexualities, including pedophilia, zoophilia, and objectophilia, stating that asexuals don't direct their sexual desire to animals, children, or objects. They simply lack any sexual attraction. He also focused on distinguishing between asexuality and hypoactive sexual desire disorder, which asexuality is commonly mistaken for. Because sexual dysfunctions are only defined as problematic if they cause marked distress and have negative impacts on someone's interpersonal relationships, asexuality in and of itself is not a disorder. He pointed out that celibacy isn't considered to be a disorder, and that the absence of sexuality hasn't consistently been seen in a negative way throughout history, so it made little sense to consider asexuality a disorder. By calling it a disorder, he argued that it could further stigmatize asexual people, and even cause mental health issues for them. Bogart's series of papers on asexuality has greatly furthered interest in the study of that topic within the past few years alone. Qualitative and quantitative research that sought to better understand the asexual identity and experience emerged. One such paper was Pross and Graham's 2007 article, Asexuality, Classification and Clarification, which found that low sexual desire was the best indicator in determining someone's asexuality. Another piece of qualitative research came from Mark Kerrigan's 2011 article, There's More to Life Than Sex? Difference and Commonality Within the Asexual Community. By conducting interviews, online questionnaires, and an analysis of materials from the asexual community, Kerrigan was able to understand asexuals and their experiences in their own words, which provided an idea of how to better conduct asexual research in the future. Quantitative research also appeared, including the studies sexologist Lori Barato assisted in conducting in 2010 and 2011, which were Asexuality, a Mixed Methods Approach, and Physiological and Subjective Sexual Arousal in Self-Identified Asexual Women. Many more pieces of research and academic studies were done on asexuality, including the ones that led to the first comprehensive book published on the topic, Anthony Bogart's Understanding Asexuality, in which Bogart examined the biological, historical, and social aspects and implications of asexuality. Because asexuality has only recently been described as a sexual orientation, any scientific research on it, as well as any effort to understand the asexual experience, is vital. Erasure and invisibility are some of the biggest obstacles the asexual community faces today because of the way that asexuality challenges the idea that sex is fundamental to the human experience. Sex is not, and likely never has been, central to every human's experience, but only within the past 60 years has there been any attempt to recognize that as a possibility. The research that has been done on asexuality, as well as the growing interest in researching on the asexual community, is finally showing that this experience is valid, and in doing so, it opens up infinitely more possibilities in understanding the ways we view sex, sexuality, and human relationships as a whole. In this episode, we looked at how research on asexuality has evolved over the years, beginning with Kinsey's reports in 1948 and 1953, which formed the basis for further explorations of asexuality, leading to Myra T. Johnson's study on asexual and autoerotic women, Michael Storm's new model on sexual orientation, empirical data on asexuality, such as Paula Nurias' examination of the relationship between sexual orientation and mental health, including asexuality as an option, and the 1994 United Kingdom survey, which found that 1% of those sampled were asexual. This in turn led to Anthony Bogart's groundbreaking book and series of papers in the 21st century, which examined and analyzed asexuality and its community, which furthered the amount of academic research and interest in recent years. Because of this, the identity for those who don't experience sexual attraction is becoming more valid, more open, and more recognized. As always, you can post any questions you have about asexuality in the comments below, and our team will do our best to answer all of those questions individually. You can find links to all of the studies we discussed in the description, as well as a link to a large list of all the asexual research that has been done throughout the years. You can contact us at support@a-ok.org or visit our website a-ok.org for more information. And as always, thanks for watching.